Oh, hi everyone. Nice to see you. I'm going to turn this around for a minute. So today we're going to look at Bonnard, this guy here. My French isn't actually very good, but anyway, this is a scene that he painted looking out of a window, and you know, you're sort of struck by his sense of light. Really, I just, hi Livy. He is a remarkable painter, and as with anything, there's always people who go in and out of fashion, or maybe they never reach the fashion because they don't speak the popular voice. However, Bonnard was he was a unique character as far as colour was concerned. It was his life. It was his passion. And, you know, I've been reading this book and a few other things about what people are saying about him. And, of course, a lot of things they're obsessed about his content of his paintings, about Martha and his wife and, you know, how he painted her in the bath all the time. There must be something wrong with him, something wrong with her. But I think as painters we can rise above that. We can rise above that because our materials and the way we choose to paint, that's important to us. And I think a lot of art critics, perhaps a lot of buyers, are not interested in that. They're just interested in a piece of decorative art. But I think as artists, at our heart is a philosophy that we have about painting. Hi Valerie, hi Christine. And I think that that's a part of what we do. That philosophy of what we're painting and how we're going about painting it, how we're researching. Now, it would probably come as no surprise to you at all that Picasso had no time for Bonnard, and he just said, Bonnard, you know, he can't choose his colours. He's always painting this colour next to that colour, and you know, it's a mess and all this sort of thing. And I'm sort of going to show you a painting close up, actually. So you can see what Picasso was thinking about when he was talking about Bonnard and his colours. But I think it's spectacular now. So you can see the interweaving of colour. I'm not saying we all want to paint like Bonnard, but we can appreciate his colour sensibility and what he was doing to get there. Sorry, I'm just going to put the microphone on. And what he was doing to get to this stage of colour. And of course the cover is also particularly good. What Bonnard was really a scientist. I mean, he was interested in science, the science of colour. And the idea that the colour wavelengths are all dependent on infrared and ultraviolet. So they're the two ends of the spectrum. If you look at a rainbow, it's Roy G. Biv, you know, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So that sort of spectrum. So violet in his world played a big part, and I often talk about violet. You'll see me saying it needs a little violet, and I think this is where it comes from, that everything reflected in nature has ultraviolet light being reflected because it's in light. Therefore violet brings, it's not purple, it's violet. Violet brings out colours. It's to do with vibration, and really Bonnard talks in this book, which is all in French, but he talks about vibration, the vibration of light. And you can see Picasso was not interested in the vibration of light. He was interested in other things. So Bonnard says, dans la lumière du midi, tout sont clair et la peinture est un plein vibration. So what he is saying is, in the middle of the day, when the light is bright and you make a painting, it is like an open vibration. And so some of what we are going to be thinking about today, in the way that we're putting colours onto the canvas, we're going to try and make it a bit more like an open vibration, a bit more like what Bonnard was thinking about. So how do we do that? Well, in our light, normally here in England anyway, it's often grey. And we miss this point. I think we miss the opportunity to use the vibration of light to create interesting color, simultaneous color mixing. I often talk about it. So we miss that opportunity to use simultaneous color mixing, which creates a vibration which you really see in nature. So Bonnard was very clear. Hi, Helen. Bonnard was very interested in going out to nature. He was a keen photographer, and he sketched. But his idea was a bit like Gauguin, that when he went back to the studio, his idea was that he could imagine, that he would use his imagination, he would use his intuition to then direct those color studies onto what he was doing. So I think that's the difference. The difference is, it's great to make sketches and do all those studies, but there comes a point where we might want to let go of that and then focus more on the color. So here we have a painting that I did in Ireland a few years ago, not actually thinking of Bonnard at that stage, but what you see in this painting is an interweaving of violet. So the violet is forming a grid structure. Hi Aileen, nice to see you. The violet is forming a grid structure and it's holding all the greens. Okay, and it's that kind of thing. The ultraviolet light is what keeps everything together. So I had a little play last night, and I'll remind you of what we did yesterday. Gosh, it doesn't seem like yesterday, but it is yesterday. So this is where we were yesterday, and because I know this video does cut in and out, but we have something new today. We will see. And so you can see the top one here is acrylic, and this is oil. And I did a little bit more work after last night. I guess the idea is, again, I was thinking, responding to these paintings and thinking, what's the color vibration? The tonal sketch was great. We liked that. We liked the no-tan study here. And I wanted to keep a sense of that with the painting. But I also wanted to create some sense of light. And it didn't have to be what I call local colour. So there's a difference between imagined colour and local colour. Local colour is what we see outside in the colours that we perceive. That's local colour. But perceived, this is intuitive color, so it's a very different discussion. One can inform the other, but as Bonnard said, there is a point where you have to put your sketch aside and then paint from your paintings. So each time you push your color idea a little further. So that's just a recap of yesterday. If you missed yesterday's lesson, no, not lesson, but yesterday's discussion. So I also did a little sketch here as well, actually. Just put that in front. It's a bit wet. And what this one is, you can see, first steps. I'm still thinking trees are green, whatever. It's very hard to get out of what you already know. Maybe these trees will be green, but you automatically push yourself to doing what you already know. That's the way the brain works. We do what we already know. So I'll put him aside. So then I got thinking about Bonnard and the idea of violet, coming in and forming a structure to hold everything in. So his idea was that yellow and violet were what keeps everything together, and then everything is woven within that yellow and violet spectrum. So I've done the violet and I've done the yellow. And going back to our sketch, what was nice was also to have some sense of warm and cool. So where we had the no-tan study, we decided that these areas were sort of cool. And then that this was sort of warm where the sky was, and here, and this was cool, but I haven't overpainted that. So I'm going to start really, and you've got a good view of that, I hope. So yeah, let me see. I can swing it a bit see that full on. So the Bonnard idea of weaving colour is very much, where do we want to place something? And I thought, really, if our view is here, then this becomes subdued. And why not paint that, why not paint that green? Why does that have to be? So a lot of his colours were based on the blues, which I've just put up here. Cerulean, I've got the turquoise. But he would mix his green in these blues, and then he obviously had yellows as well, but he mixed blues, and he would also mix his violets from these blues. So he would add reds and magenta into these blues to make his violets. So actually his colours are sort of coordinated together because of his choices. So if I made that decision to paint the side of the shed blue, I might just use a violet here, but I wouldn't block everything in. I would leave something a little open, because I know yesterday we went just like that with the brush, but I would leave something a little open just to let the light in. So that's a colour. Here's a colour choice, and as it comes into the light, you see, I can just make that even more sketchy. So there's a sense of light through that. Now I'm going to mix up some green. I've got basically cad yellow as the base for that, and transparent yellow to give it a tiny touch of warmth, but so I'm actually using that there, which is a Michael Harding's yellow. And these colours are going to work through the whole colour palette. And I'm also going to use cadmium orange, which I've also put there in the background in acrylic. This is actually acrylic now, so I'm painting over acrylic, just because it makes it a little easier to manage it, because otherwise it'll be too wet to really paint on. So I think I think that would be enough to mix a good selection of greens from as well. So it's going to be a very basic palette today. Hold it up there. And from that we can mix everything. Whoa, there goes that white was about to run away. So let's get started. Now I like to use a straight edge as well. I just find it's a little easier to manage painting just upright like this. So I'm not actually using cold wax in this at the moment, not at this stage. So the blue I'll mix from the cerulean and cad yellow. And this is what imagined colour does to you. See now, that kind of you sort of think, oh, I won't put green. You wouldn't normally think to put green on a roof. And again, just mix a little cad orange into it just to warm it up. You can see why I need the straight edge, because just trying to make sure I don't obscure your view. So, and again, it's kind of lighter here, so you know I'm leaving it more broken to the point where it's going to be absorbing more light, and that violet is starting to read now into the orange and into the green. Everything's going to be interwoven with the violet. Now it's darker on the far side, so this time I mix up that green with a little ultramarine, but it's still a green. There is a sense of some, you know, in his buildings that a lot of them are quite unusual colours, but again leaving some of that violet at this stage to come through. Normally that's a tree colour and we'd go, what? But this is just the blocking. But having said that it's a tree colour, it's also quite useful to maybe use it as a bit of local colour. But we have the lovely violet in there as well, and we don't want to get rid of that. This is just thinking out loud, really. So I'm just talking to myself. Just flop that in. Again, as it comes up towards the light, there is less at play here. What is important is getting the light into the structure of the tree. So we really are playing this green now against that green, and that's interesting, and that's darker, and that's also interesting. It's an interesting interplay of colour. And so if we're thinking greens, then we come into here, and this is very different, and this is completely in the shade. So you know the colour choice there might be a little different. We might go into a violet to go down that path. Now I'm going to use an ultramarine mixed with a little magenta and some orange, and then so this becomes a shade of violet. It's in the shade, and you know we tend to see more of that ultraviolet in the shade. You know, they're sort of slightly bluer, the shadows, aren't they? So you know, just where that might appear like so, and we might feel that even in the shadows here we might have that shade colour coming in there. We're weaving light, we're weaving that violet into everything. It's looking very Bonnard already. Okay, so you know what's happening here. It's a more broken, green violet. It's just a little lighter down there, or I'm going to make it lighter. Fits in with our. Now I'm leaving the drawing as well. I'm leaving a lot of bits of this drawing, not painting over it. It's quite nice to see some of the workings of that. And if there's anywhere else, you know, you can see that colour value, that light might appear. It's also a nice way to sort of link up things, you know, where that might fit in. It might be that light fits in here. On the roof. Maybe that's where we find that green again. So we have the three greens coming in. Again, trying to leave some of that violet to... You can always come back in with more violet. But there's a real sense of light falling on that now, and it's green. It's not what you would think that a roof colour was. You know, shadows could be all sorts of things. The next bit to look at I'm going to start working with some of the violets. I just need a clean palette for that. I need to sort of just start this space here. So I've just got the violet with the orange. It's almost like a flesh colour really, isn't it? Might also be found in here. You can see how when I put that on top of that blue green, we get a very shady sort of colour. The green with the violet creates that very interesting vibration, and that's what Bonnard was looking for. He was looking for this kind of vibration. Now, let's have a look at creating that same dynamic on this side. I'm going to use that yellow, make quite a bit of a sort of a slightly citrusy green. Because this has a feeling of light there. So now sort of a slightly citrusy coming in here. Again, not obliterating things, but letting that violet talk through that citrusy green. So we get this very dynamic colour combination here, which is also doing the same thing. Just going to add a little bit more of that in there, because the path curves around there like that. This is sort of lighter but fading out there. And because it is light, let's paint it light. Is there anywhere else I can add that light? You know, I might just bring some in here as well. Just where it's catching the light on that tree. So it's a different way of thinking really about painting. It's just juxtaposing one solid colour next to the other, just to feel that vibration. This is interesting here because that yellow green is almost in here as well. Something about that feeling. I think it's because of the blue. also some plants there, which I've kind of intimated. Let's have a look a little bit at this here, because within the violet there's also a little orange. Bring back some of that orange in there where the light is hitting that. And that's created. You can see why he went backwards and forwards, because he's pulling the orange now on top of what he had before. These light colours are quite, are quite important as well to, to give you that feeling of light. Just layering now some yellow into that green. It's amazing how much you start looking at colour when it matters about colour. Normally I say, don't use colour as a get out of jail free card for poor composition, but actually in this case we know the composition's okay, but the colour decisions are huge here. You put the wrong colour down and the whole thing will lose its sense of balance. It really is a sense of balance that we're after. Just lightening that. Minuscule little gradations of light, really minuscule. They make such a difference to the eye. You wouldn't believe something so small could be so powerful. Right. It's a bit of a backwards and forwards thing with the violet. Need a transition really for this, so I'm going to just pop that in there. I think if you sort of really look closely at Bonnard's work, there isn't a sense of brushwork for the sake of it. The brushwork is really because it's managing to speak through a colour, and I think that's also quite interesting. So the brush is there to do its job, really, which is imparting the colour. Let's get a bit of violet into the green of the tree as well. So it's toning that green down, it's making it a different sort of... So we've got the violet that's coming from underneath, now we've got the violet that's being placed over the top, not completely obliterating everything. Starting very grey violet in here over this blue. And this was in the shade here. Again, just being very careful not to overdo it. How things transition into each other too. It's that comes into that and this comes into that. So it's probably why also he went backwards and forwards to now come back in with the yellow, because it needs to be laid in the top. Now we're starting to get a feel of almost like stonework in the shadow. And we wouldn't normally think about using green in this sort of way. It doesn't actually even look green anymore, which is also quite peculiar. Bringing that violet back into the roof, layering that over the green. This is totally unexpected colour combination, would not normally have chosen that, but it's fascinating. I can bring the sky colour down into the roof there. Okay. Now just bring the violet back into this green. We've got a little rook that's fallen out of its nest in the garden, so it's been crying out to the parents all morning. That's what's making all that noise. It's a little dark. Come back in and just take that off a little. That down. Now when I'm changing from these blues through to the greens, you know, I'm using different palettes for the yellows and different palettes for the greens, because otherwise they would get very mucky very, very quickly. I'm not really going to do too much to the sky because, you know, we can I can come back and do that later. Just really want to get the basis of the main composition down like this. Okay, let's add another. Lightened it just a fraction so I can read it properly, otherwise it's very interested to know actually what kind of brushes Bonnard uses as well, because you know, the kind of brush you use does give you a different story as to how the paint goes on. So just changing this blue slightly. Just kind of like that a little. Pop a little dark into that. And then pop some violet, pale violet blue. Again, just as the path comes around here, still aware of perspective as well. So there's a bit of a block in using violet to hold the grid structure and thinking a little more about complex areas of how colours transition through to each other. Now I'm going to probably change. This will change quite a bit. I'm going to knock that back. It'll probably have a little bit of violet coming into it, and you can see straight away that changes the way the orange reads. It neutralizes it, but I want to take some care over that, so I'll go slowly. We're sort of pretty much out of time now, so anyway, that's where we've got to on that, and I'm quite interested to see what will come out of this. It's so far removed from the Cotswold landscape that it was, and also I've been using quite big brushes. So once I start using smaller brushes, it could be quite interesting to see what happens. So brilliant. Okay, I hope that was something useful to you, and I'll turn this around this way. I hope that was something useful to you, and obviously we're coming to the end of the isolation time now, so let's say I probably do a live every week or twice a week once the restrictions are all off, because I'll probably be plein air painting outside, and stay well everybody, but yeah, do stay in touch. If you've enjoyed the videos that I've been doing for 54 days now, please send me a message. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to keep it as part of my record for the COVID period, and I'm going to keep all these videos together, load them onto YouTube that have become a bit more sensible, so you can watch them in little clips. So yeah, but please get in touch if there's something you really enjoyed about them and I can build on that, or something you'd like to know. All right, till then, we'll catch you later. Bye.